I think worldwide right now, in a lot of ways, with everything that we're experiencing and seeing, she said, he's a story of surviving when things just aren't quite right. This little round raccoon became a folk hero overnight, a clear spot in the hazy, hot, smoke-filled sky of the Pacific Northwest. If Jimothy can survive and thrive, well then perhaps we just might too. And then I read the piece that Katherine Hayhoe wrote about her raccoon encounter, the one that I turned into the story for all ages this morning. And that got me thinking about raccoons in general, not just Jimothy, but all raccoons, as this symbol of resilience and adaptability in a challenging world. Did you know that raccoons are evolving to get cuter? We can actually trace the way they are evolving to become more appealing to human beings. Their snouts are getting shorter, their eyebrows are getting more expressive. They've learned that humans have great snacks. And the best way to get a human to part with their snacks is to be as cute as possible. Experts agree you shouldn't fall for this cuteness, however, that it's best for the raccoons to eat their raccoon food and not our farmer's market haul. Observed and not adopted is the best way to approach them. However, this adaptive strategy of cuteness seems to be working on us. I started asking around, and it turns out people love talking about raccoons. If you are ever at a dinner party and you find yourself with some social anxiety and don't know how to break the ice, just start talking about raccoons, and I guarantee you the conversation will be off and running. I asked for people's raccoon stories, and I was flooded with tales of midnight escapades, destructive tendencies, loud and often disturbingly human-like sounds, and more than anything else, an ability to break and enter into any place that might have snacks. I got sent a few photos of our local raccoon friends here as well. These are different trios of raccoons gracing our Santa Barbara area. I heard about raccoons that snuck in, opened a kitchen cabinet, opened a jar of dog treats, only to take them all to the bathroom to wash them carefully in the toilet beforehand, leaving little muddy footprints and crumbs that told the tale. I heard about a family who wondered why they had so many raccoons in their backyard, only to discover that one of the kids would take any of the food that she didn't like from dinner and smuggle it in a napkin into the yard and leave it for the raccoons. I heard about a fancy new cooler that my aunt bought for a camping trip that her teenage daughter couldn't figure out how to open. It had a latch hidden inside the handle, only to discover the next morning that the raccoon was smarter than any of the teenagers and had opened the cooler and consumed every bit of food in it. I heard about the time my friend heard a crash in the middle of the night and thought there was someone breaking in, only to discover 5 raccoons trying to push an entire 40-pound bag of dog food through the dog door. A raccoon that, after being shooed out of the kitchen after eating all of the dry pasta and cat food, had the nerve to stand up on its little hind legs and knock at the glass door to be let back in. And a friend told me about the time he tried to make a raccoon trap out of plywood, which kind of worked in that the raccoon did fall into the trap, and he knew this because in the morning, all he found was an exploded trap and remnants of plywood that had clearly been dismantled from the inside. Raccoons are not some mysterious and gentle woodland creatures that we observe from a distance. They are not rare, or particularly majestic, or particularly graceful. But perhaps they are the animal teachers that we need right now. So often when we think about the way nature can heal us and teach us and inspire us with wonder and awe, we imagine having to go far out into the wilderness, to hike up a mountain, to stargaze far from the city lights, to be overcome with that rapture that I know so many of you hold as sacred experience. We imagine nature as something out there, grand and gorgeous and mysterious. I think of the Wendell Berry poem, The Peace of Wild Things, one of our sort of canonical Unitarian Universalist poets. And you might know this one. It starts out, "When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives might be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things." There is no peace of wild things with raccoons. Anyone who has woken in the night to the sound of them fighting a dog outside of their bedroom window knows that you do not hang out with raccoons to rest. But in this hot and fearful summer, the summer of fires and heat waves and droughts, with that super El Nino news bearing down on us, warning us of storms coming, perhaps rest is not the teacher we need right now. Now, this isn't to say don't take naps, don't take turns, keep sustaining yourself. However, perhaps what we need right now is the inspiration to get crafty, to get stubborn, to get curious and get determined, to get together with 5 of our closest friends and put on matching outfits and raise a ruckus until all the lights in the neighborhood get turned on. And people open their doors and their minds to find out what's going on. Perhaps this moment calls for paying attention to the joyful wildness right here in the cities and towns where we live, to help free us from that trap of despair that so can quickly lead to apathy. Katharine Hayhoe, that climate scientist who wrote about the raccoon, she believes that fighting against despair has to be a core strategy of the environmental movement. As an environmental scientist who has been raising the alarm about climate change for years, she sees doomerism as one of the biggest dangers emerging from the ongoing onslaught of terrible news that we are forced to confront every day. Doomerism. The view that climate change is real, but we will never be able to change things fast enough to avoid catastrophe, and that anyone who tells you otherwise is foolish or selling you something. It results in a takedown of scientists like Hayhoe on social media who are doing their best to try to shift us all towards resilience. Our brains, Hayhoe says, are not built for constant, long-term worry. If we get stuck under an avalanche of bad news that makes us feel helpless, we might start to simply tune out the news or join the ranks of climate deniers. But worse than that, she says, is when we do pay attention but begin to believe there is nothing more we can do and give up. Given the scale of the problems we are confronting, it is normal to worry. I'd be worried about you if you weren't worried. It's rational to be a little scared of what's coming if we stay on our current course. But when she, as a climate scientist, tries to point out the things we can do that will still make a difference, more and more often she finds she is met with a fatalistic response that turns into outright hostility from people who accuse her of being too hopeful in the face of what they see as certain failure. And she rightly observes there is comfort in giving up. Giving up is a comfortable place. If you are seeking a way to escape the stress of climate anxiety and the heartbreaking work of trying to get the world to change course, doomerism, in a strange way, provides an off-ramp to that anxiety. If you don't try, you can't fail. If you prepare for the worst, then you'll never be let down. Certainty is less stressful than ambiguity, even if the certainty involved is certain doom. But from Hayhoe's perspective, the climate doomers are just as wrong as the climate change deniers. Both groups are hiding from the responsibility and urgency of action. Doomerism is a way of hiding from the responsibility of action and the responsibility we have to care for one another and this earth. She says it's absolutely true that we can no longer avoid all the impacts already unfolding. It is also true that although climate action is happening, it's not at the scale needed to avoid all of the dangerous impacts. And it's true that the challenges before us are serious, but they are not beyond our ability to solve. We still have the power to change the future and avert the worst. Every bit of warming avoided matters, she says, and every action counts. I think this is one of the reasons that HeyHo so often works within faith-based climate action organizations. Religious community is one of the places people turn to find hope and agency in difficult situations. It's a bulwark against despair and disengagement. HeyHo is not shy about sharing that she is both a scientist and a devout Christian, and her love for the world is connected with her spiritual life. I may not find myself aligned theologically with her, but on that I can agree. My love for the world is deeply connected to my spiritual life. But what does this have to do with raccoons? How did we get from the antics of Jimothy to the trap of climate doomerism? HeyHo sees loving the world as a critical part of motivating people to take action in ways large and small. And so loving Jimothy, or loving any place you find joy in the natural world around us, is a way of fighting back against the apathy that can set in when we allow the news to overwhelm us. Loving Jimothy, or however you love the world, gives our brain a little break from that bad weather, so that we can keep going for the long haul. Because no matter how terrible the current administration's climate policies are and the current capitalist system is doing to extract profit from the world, no matter how hard all this is right now, this too can and will change. And we have to be ready to seize the opportunity to keep on loving the world into a better future. And we are doing just that, my friends. We take this joy here at the Unitarian Society, this love of life that we just sang about, this spiritual path of finding delight in the natural world, and we are letting it motivate us to make those changes we hope to see. I know that many of you are making climate-friendly changes in your own life, but I want you to know that you are part of something larger, and I want to give you just a little bit of update because this too brings me hope and helps me keep going. Whether you are here for the first time or you have made your home here for years, you are part of a community that is doing the big and bold project of building resilience right here on our campus. You are one of hundreds of little raccoons getting our hands into the nitty-gritty of this work. Every week, I get updates from our resilience team as we work through the details of implementing our vision on this project. And if you're new here, I invite you to talk to some folks about it afterwards at coffee hour. We're in the middle of this complex maze of permitting with the city for our solar batteries and submitting several grant applications and all of the things I'm sure raccoons would find very boring, but are necessary if we're going to keep this going. And I'm excited to say we also have the first clip of a documentary that is being made about this process. So check your email next week for a link, and you can watch the very first hot off the presses introduction to what we are going to be doing all this whole coming year. And I want to give a shout out to a few particular raccoons on our resilience team: Craig Lewis and Buzz Moran and Lorraine and Craig Woodman and Aaron Wilson and Scott Kipp. Raccoons have nothing on them when it comes to stubborn persistence. An organizer friend of mine, when he was working in the scrappy startup phase of the tenants union in Santa Barbara, said he was described once as just 3 raccoons in a trench coat. And like my friend, our resilience team is embodying the best of raccoon behavior. Their hearts and minds are working every angle they can to get in there to those goodies of resilience and solar energy. And thinking about this engagement of HeyHos with climate doomerism and also the resilience and creativity of raccoons, I have come to realize something I did not fully appreciate until now. That this resilience hub work we're doing, it's about so much more than just providing solar energy battery backup when the grid goes down. This is also about providing a model that will help other communities do the same, replicating it out in the world. And it also brings those climate doomers a little bit closer into the fold because we are preparing for hard times at the same time. We're building those relationships of trust and care that will support us and sustain us when things do get bad. It creates a big tent where everyone can find a place to invest in the work. We are pushing the city and county to pay attention, to get unstuck from that apathy. And if you want to go talk to them about Jimothy, feel free to spread the word. And all of this could not happen with the amazing support of this community. So I just wanted to cheerlead a little bit for the work that you might not even know you were doing when you were sitting here, but it is happening. Our faith makes us ambitious. Why settle for just a handful of kibble when we can get together with our friends and push that whole 40-pound bag out the door? Right? Like raccoons, we get a lot more accomplished when we work together. Finding joy and letting that lead us into action is not about ignoring the fires and the floods. It's about acknowledging that there is always more on this earth than just suffering. If we find love and delight in the little trash pandas with which we share our neighborhoods, if we stay in touch with that wildness that is peering in through our kitchen windows, if we just take a moment to see it, then we're more likely to stay in touch with the positive ways we make a difference in the larger struggle. Like raccoons, we can be crafty, adaptable, adorable, stubborn, and if need be, quite a bit feisty. So let's get out there and raise a ruckus and remind everyone that we will not ever give up on loving the world. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.